Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have some forced proximity romance book recommendations for you. If you don't know what forced proximity is, I feel like this is one of those ones that no one really talks about that often. It's basically when the characters are kind of put into situations where they can't avoid each other, things like they work together or they're roommates or they're just always together, and so it sort of forces them to hang out and develop a relationship. This is definitely probably one of my favorite tropes. I can't even think of a book that has this that I didn't like. They're always good. There's always so much tension and longing that goes with it. They're so good. So anyway, let's get into the book recs. So the first one is Burnout by Coralie June. This is also a brother's best friend and student teacher book, so it's got all the tropes all wrapped up in this one book. It is super, super good. I loved the tension in this one. It follows a girl who is in high school, but I believe she's a bit older. I think she's 19, and she moves in with her brother to finish out high school and ends up with this guy who's her brother's best friend, is also her teacher, and he is kind of living, or I guess he's living in the apartment for part of the book. And so he's obviously always there, and they're just forced to spend every minute together because they go to school together, they live in the same area, and so they're just always in each other's faces, and there's an attraction there, but he's no, I can't date you, you're a student, that would be wrong, and we can't do that, and your brother would be mad, and all this stuff. There's so many reasons why they can't be together, and it's just so good. The tension in this book was so good because they were constantly forced to be in the same location, even though they were trying to stay away from each other, and it was just so good. The ending of this book is so good. I really recommend this one. It's definitely obviously forced proximity. Like I said, they spend every minute together because they have to. And it's just a really good book. Definitely recommend this one. Next is The Roommate by Rosie Danan. I feel like everybody knows about this book. This one follows a girl who moves into this house because she's basically following this guy that she's had a crush on, and she thinks she's moving in with this guy that she's had a crush on for years to be his roommate, and she gets there and he's like, no, actually I'm going on tour with my band, so I got your roommate off Craigslist. Basically, here you go. And she's like, what the heck? She didn't even really want to move to this place. She was only moving there because she thought the guy was there. And she's just really upset because now she's stuck with this random roommate she's never met, and the guy she likes is just leaving for the whole summer. And so she's really upset at the beginning, and then she finds out that this guy that her crush found for her on Craigslist is actually a porn star that's living with her, and she's super reserved, so they don't really get along right off the bat. And this one definitely, obviously they're roommates, so they're forced to be together all the time, even though they're kind of getting on each other's nerves. And this one's just really good. I really loved this book as well. Next is another popular one, the On Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. Definitely falls into this trope. This is about a girl and a guy who are the brother and sister of the bride and groom at a wedding, basically. So this is the bride's twin sister and the groom's brother, who can't stand each other, and the whole wedding ends up getting food poisoning at the wedding, except for these two, because they both had special dishes. He was allergic to something, so he got his own dish, and she was allergic to something, or she just didn't want whatever was on the buffet, so she got the special dietary meal too, so they both didn't eat whatever was bad that made everyone else get sick. And the married couple can't go on their honeymoon because they're super sick, and they're like, okay, you two go because you have the same last names as us, just go and take the vacation at least, so it doesn't go to waste. And the two of them cannot stand each other, but they are obviously gonna go on this trip, so they go to, I believe they go to Maui in this, and they have to pretend they're a couple the whole time they're there because everyone thinks that they're the newlyweds. And so they hate each other, they're getting on each other's nerves, but they're constantly put in these situations where they have to act like they're in love with each other, and it's just so funny. This book is so good. This is obviously I think Christina Lauren's probably most hyped book. It is definitely worth the hype. I loved it. It's super funny, has so many cute funny moments in it, and it's just like really the definition of a rom-com. Like I feel like sometimes I read rom-coms and they're not even funny, but this one is actually so funny and so good. So definitely recommend this one. Next is The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in the Briar You series, but you could totally read this on its own. This one follows Summer, who is like a fashion student, like super girly, who ended up moving into this house with hockey players because her brother used to live with the hockey players and he has graduated, moved on, and she needed a place to live, so he's like, just take the room that I left basically in this house. So she ends up living with a bunch of hockey players, and obviously that puts her in close proximity with the hockey players. And there's this one guy that just sort of she keeps talking to, but she's kind of like been seen with this other guy that lives there. So there's this sort of like gray area between them where the guy is like, do I make a move? I don't think I should make a move, because she's kind of like seeing this other guy, and the other guy doesn't really care. And it's like not really a love, I mean, I guess it's kind of a love triangle. It's not like super love triangle-y though, because I don't think she's really deciding between them. Like I think she knows who she wants. But this one definitely, like, they're roommates, they spend a lot of time together. Her brother was friends with this guy, so again, some brother's best friend going on in this one. Really, really cute. I definitely like this one. It's definitely like an opposites attract kind of book. She's super, like I said, girly. She's studying fashion, and he is like super computer dorky, like designing video games kind of thing. And they're just like really, really cute together. I love them. Next is Broken by Lauren Lane. I love this book so much, and I have never heard this book mentioned anywhere. Like, no one talks about this book, and they should, because it is so good. This one follows a girl who, I believe she drops out of college because she's like, I'm gonna go volunteer and just like find myself or whatever. And her parents are kind of like annoyed, and so they're like, okay, we got you a gig, like babysitting this like military vet who needs someone to take care of him. And she's like, well, okay, like, I guess I could do that. And so she's imagining this, like, old man, you know, that's gonna need help, like, walking up the stairs kind of thing. And so she flies out to this, like, town where he lives, and he's, like, in this, like, super, like, small town, reclusive, like, house that's on its own street kind of thing. And she moves out there, and she's basically moving in with him to take care of him. So they're literally gonna be living in the same house. But she gets there and finds out he's only, I think he's 23 or 24. And she's just like, well, okay, this is not what I was expecting. But he is like super grumpy and like so snarky to her at the beginning, and it's just like, it's such a good book. And they're obviously like, they're forced to live together. She's like, I'm not giving up just because you're a jerk. And like, she's like determined to help this dude, and he's like determined to get rid of her. And it's just, it's such a good like opposites, forced proximity, sort of enemies to lovers kind of thing. Like, it's just, it's so good. And like I said, I never hear anyone talking about this one, but it is so good. I highly recommend it. If you're gonna read any book from this video, read this one, because I literally gave this book like 5 stars. Like, I loved it, and definitely not really like anything I've read before, with the exception of maybe like Archer's Voice. If you've read Archer's Voice and you loved it, try this one, because you'll probably like it too. It's so good. Next is Unconditional by QB Tyler, and like I say when I recommend QB Tyler's books all the time, this book is not going to be for everyone. Her books are always very like taboo. They're very questionable relationships, things that you probably wouldn't support in real life, but in a book you're like, okay, I could get behind that. And in this one, it follows a guy who, I believe he's 23 and he's a cop, and there is a murder-suicide that he like responds to, and when they are there, they find this 7-year-old girl hidden in a closet. Like, she was hiding when her parents died, and so she's obviously like an orphan now. She's got nowhere to go, and she, at the time, like, will not let go of this 23-year-old cop. He's just like holding her, and he's like, no, it's fine, like, I'll take her for the night until we can find her like a foster placement, like, you know, if she doesn't want to let go of me, whatever, like, it'll be fine, I'll take her home. So he takes her home for the night, and she just like never leaves. Like, he can't bring himself to send her to a foster family, and she doesn't want to leave him. And she's obviously been through like a ton of stuff, so he's like, okay, like, I guess I will become her guardian. So he like gets like legal guardianship of her, but he never adopts her. So she's never actually his kid. Like, that's never really the relationship they have. They're almost like roommates, even though she's like 7 when she comes to live with him. But she is now almost 18, which is like every QB Tyler book is like that. The girl is almost 18, which makes the relationship like totally shift. But she's now almost 18, and obviously she's starting to act on things that he has been like, no, like this is the line and we're not crossing it. And there's definite, obviously, forced proximity because they literally lived together since she was 7 and he was 23. And so there's just like a lot that goes on in this book. It's really good, really crazy, like all QB Tyler books are, but 100% would recommend if you're open to reading that. Like I said, he never adopts her, so she's not his kid. They're literally just like roommates that he like sort of raised her, I guess, in a way. But also there's like this female cop, I'm pretty sure, that's kind of like helping him over the time, or like with different things with raising her. And so she has like other sort of parent figures, I guess you could say, so it's not like that wild. But it is a good book. It definitely has like the forced proximity because, like I said, they lived together for years and years, so there's definitely that going on. They basically share the same family, and it's just really good. Next is Hookline and Singer by Tessa Bailey. I love this book way more than I thought I would, to be honest. I really liked how it was done. This is the second book to It Happened One Summer. I don't know if the series has a name, but it's the second book that was after it. You don't have to read It Happened One Summer to read this one. And this one is sort of a best friends to lovers, and it follows Hannah, who is coming to this town, and she sort of is in the town in the first book with her sister. And so she's now coming back because she is filming a TV show or a movie or something. She works in film production. And they're there to film, so she is coming back to this town, but she has nowhere to stay. And so she ends up staying with Fox, who is her best friend, who she met when she was previously in the town in the first book, and they kind of hit it off, but also he was like, no, like I'm the player of the town, and everyone's telling him to stay away from her. And like every time they're together, the boyfriend of the girl in the first book, so like her sister's boyfriend, is sort of like giving him dirty looks and being like, stay away from her, and like everyone's warning him off of this girl because they think he's not going to be good for her, and he sort of convinces himself that he's not going to be good for her. But because they're now like essentially roommates, like she's staying with him in this town, things obviously, the lines start to get blurred, things go from there. This one's really, really cute. I liked how a lot of things were dealt with in this one, and I just thought their romance was really sweet and really cute as well. Definitely really, really liked this one. Next is The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This one is the second book, I believe, in the Kiss Quotient series. I'm not sure if that's the actual name of the series, but that's the first book. And this one follows a guy who doesn't really like have any interest in getting married. Like he's not in any kind of rush or anything, but his mom is like, no, like you gotta find a wife. And so she brings this girl from Vietnam, and she's like, okay, like if you let her stay with you for the summer, I'll stop trying to hook you up with all these like brides. And so he's like, okay, fine, she can stay for the summer. Basically he figures like this girl will come, stay for the summer, leave, and he'll be like free of his mom trying to set him up all the time. But she ends up coming, and obviously like they sort of grow on each other, but she's literally living in his house, so definite forced proximity, like cause his mom literally forced her to live there, and it goes from there. This one is really, really cute. I love this whole series. It's really well done. And lastly is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. This one follows a girl who, she's living in this apartment complex, and there's this guy on the balcony that's always playing guitar that she's kind of always watched, and he has been watching her back, and something goes down with her and her boyfriend where she ends up moving in with this guy with the guitar on the balcony for a little while, and they are spending a ton of time together, and they actually start writing songs together, and so they're like growing closer and closer. But this guy has a girlfriend, and so they're kind of getting closer together, but she's literally like living with him, so it's kind of like definitely got the forced proximity. But there's like a lot. I feel like you can't talk about Colleen Hoover books without like spoiling things, and so that's really all I'm gonna say. But like she moves in with him, and they're like kind of all in each other's faces all the time. But I really love this book. It's one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books, so I definitely recommend this one. But anyway, those are all my recs for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.